Welcome to Starbound Valor HFY. Subscribe now and dive into daily epic sci-fi adventures where humanity always rises. The research station floated quietly at the edge of the Vora galaxy, far from trade routes, far from wars, and far from any kind of noise. The scientists who worked there were the smartest minds in the galaxy, but even they were not prepared for what they found that morning. A small metal object drifted toward their scanners, moving with no fuel, no engine, and no heat. At first, they thought it was just another piece of space junk, but when the scans failed to identify the metal, their excitement and fear grew. The material did not match anything in the galaxy. The object was around the size of a backpack, smooth silver, and covered with thin glowing lines that moved like living veins. The scientists brought it inside the station and placed it in the main lab. Everyone gathered around it, whispering theories. Some said it was a probe. Some said it was a weapon. But the lead researcher, Dr. Nero, felt something different. He believed it was not dead. He believed it was waiting. For hours, the team scanned it, opened files, and tried to understand its design. Every attempt failed. The machine rejected every signal, every tool, every test. Their scanners could not see inside it. Their tools could not scratch it. Their computers could not describe it. It was like the machine existed in a form of science they had never learned. Dr. Nero ordered the team to step back and let the lab quiet down. He watched the machine carefully, studying the lines running across its surface. They pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady. It almost felt alive. The room grew cold, and the lights dimmed for a moment. Then the machine made a sound, a soft click. The scientists froze. Nothing in the room had touched it. No one had activated it. But the machine had woken up by itself. A small blue eye-like circle opened on its surface and looked around the room. Not through a lens, but like something aware, something thinking. Panic spread through the team. Some scientists tried to run, but the doors locked automatically. The machine lifted itself into the air with no engines, no noise, no energy trail. It simply floated, controlled by physics that made no sense to anyone. Dr. Nero forced himself to stay calm and raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "We do not want to hurt you," he said softly. The machine rotated, turning its blue eye toward him. It scanned him from head to toe. Then the room lights flickered again. Every screen in the lab flashed with strange symbols, human symbols, old languages that had not been spoken for centuries. The team looked at each other in shock. "It is human technology," Dr. Nero whispered, "but far beyond anything humans left behind." Machines had been found before, but nothing like this. Nothing so advanced. Nothing so alive. As the team watched helplessly, the machine projected a map into the air, a star map that stretched across the room. Dozens of glowing points appeared. Some were familiar stars. Many were not. Some points were crossed out in red, as if destroyed. Some blinked fast, showing danger. The scientists realized it was not a map of their galaxy. It was a map of where the machine had been. The machine suddenly dropped the projection and turned its eye bright white. Warning lights activated around the room. The temperature fell even lower. Then it spoke. Its voice was human, but cold, empty, like a recording from a long-dead person. "Why did you open me?" the machine asked. The scientists stood frozen. No one knew what to say. They had not opened it. They had only touched it. The machine scanned the room again, faster this time. The lights flickered and every computer in the lab shut down. Power across the station began to fail. Systems that had never broken before went offline one by one. The machine rose higher, glowing brighter. The entire station shook. Dr. Nero finally found his voice. "We do not understand you," he said. "We do not know why you are here." The machine became silent for a long moment. Then its eye dimmed, and it spoke again, this time softer. "Unauthorized access detected. Human protocol breached." Fear filled the room. The machine was not just a device. It had rules, instructions, purposes they could not imagine. It was not meant to be touched. It was not meant to be found. And yet here it was, awake inside their station. Suddenly, the machine projected something new. An image of a shadow-like creature, tall, thin, moving fast. The scientists had never seen anything like it. The machine spoke again. They will come. The lights shut off completely. The machine closed its glowing eye. And in the dark, the scientists realized something terrible. Whatever the machine feared was now heading toward them. The lights returned slowly, flickering one by one across the research station, but the room still felt cold, as if the air itself was afraid. The machine floated in the center of the lab, silent again, its single eye dark and lifeless, like nothing had happened. But everyone in the room knew something had changed. Dr. Nero tried to restart the computers, but every screen showed the same message in an old human language: access blocked. The scientists had never seen a machine that could shut down an entire station with no power connection. They whispered among themselves, asking what the machine meant when it said, "They will come." No alien species in the galaxy used a word like "they" with such fear. Something was out there, something the machine knew well. While the team struggled to bring the systems back online, a soft vibration passed through the walls of the station. It felt like a heartbeat, slow and heavy. Dr. Nero checked the sensors, but they were offline. The vibration came again, stronger this time, and the metal tables rattled. The machine's eye flashed open for a split second, like someone waking from a nightmare, then closed again. It was reacting to something outside. One scientist ran to the main window, staring into the endless black space. At first, he saw nothing. But then, far in the distance, a faint pulse of red light appeared, then disappeared. It looked unnatural, like a beacon that was not meant to be found. "Is this what the machine warned us about?" the scientist whispered. Dr. Nero wanted to answer, but he had no idea. He stepped closer to the machine. "If you can hear me," he said slowly, "we need to understand what is coming." The machine did not move. No response. It was as silent as stone. The station's emergency lights flickered again, then turned steady green. Energy readings returned to normal. But the scientists knew the calm was fake, like the moment before a storm hits. Suddenly, the machine rose higher and projected a faint waveform in the air. A sound wave. A signal. The scientists watched the wave trembling as if someone, or something, was sending a message across space. Dr. Nero activated a handheld recorder, one of the few devices the machine had not shut down. The wave grew stronger, louder, then clearer. A deep, distorted sound echoed through the lab. It was not language. It was not any known alien communication. It was a low growl mixed with static, as if something huge was speaking through broken space. The machine translated the sound into simple words. Signal detected. Threat approaching. Fear shot through the room. Threat approaching. From where? The machine showed a small hologram of the galaxy. A point of light blinked in the outer region. The blinking point moved toward the station, slow but steady, like a predator stalking prey. One scientist tried to contact the main empire, but their long-range communication was blocked. The machine was controlling it, or the threat was. No one knew. Another deep vibration shook the station, this time making the ceiling panels crack. Tools fell to the floor. The machine's eye opened fully now, glowing bright blue. It slowly turned toward the window, as if it could see something the scientists could not. Dr. Nero took a step back. The machine spoke again, its voice darker and colder than before. Human protocol activated. Warning. Hostile entity inbound. Human protocol. Hostile entity. The words sounded like part of an ancient war order. The scientists exchanged terrified glances. Humans had left the galaxy long ago. Their technology was advanced, yes, but nothing like this. This machine was not only a tool. It was a soldier, a sentinel, perhaps the last guardian of something humans feared. The red pulse outside the window flashed again, closer now. It was no longer faint. It was sharp and angry, like an eye opening in the dark. The station's outer sensors finally came online for a moment. They detected something enormous approaching, but the data showed impossible readings, mass shifting, shape unknown, movement faster than physics allowed. Then the sensors shut off again. The machine drifted lower and projected a final message in the air. Prepare. They followed the signal. Dr. Nero felt his heart freeze. The signal. The machine had sent a signal earlier, the one they traced to the dead planet. The machine had spoken of unauthorized access. of a breach. Maybe the machine wasn't warning them. They had accidentally alerted something by touching it. The scientists turned to the window once more. This time they all saw it. A massive shadow moved in the darkness, too large to measure, too silent to be natural. It looked like a creature made of night itself. No ship, no engine, just a shifting black form creeping toward the station. The machine's voice filled the room one last time. Contact in 300 seconds. The countdown had begun, and the scientists finally understood that whatever was coming was not just dangerous. It was something humanity feared enough to leave behind machines instead of staying to fight. And now, that same thing was coming for them. The shadow outside the station grew larger with every passing second, spreading across the stars, like a stain that refused to stop. The scientists stood frozen, unable to understand how something so huge could move with such silence, such cold, such hunger. The machine hovered in the center of the lab, its glowing blue eye flickering like a warning light on the edge of death. Dr. Nero felt the air tighten in his chest as he forced himself to watch the creature approach. It was not a ship, not a living being, not anything from their known universe. It shifted constantly, stretching and pulling as if made from smoke and gravity at the same time. When it moved, the stars behind it bent and twisted, proving that whatever it was, it had the power to distort space itself. Suddenly, the machine projected a new map, a different one from before. This was not a map of space. It was a map of a planet, a cold, dark world with deep cracks across its surface and strange metallic ruins scattered everywhere. Dr. Nero recognized it immediately. It was the same planet where they found the second human machine. The planet humans visited long ago. The planet they abandoned. The machine's voice echoed through the lab, calm but urgent. Return to origin site. Only chance. The scientists looked at each other in panic. Return. Now. With a creature outside their station? One scientist shook his head wildly. We cannot leave. That thing will destroy us before we reach the ship. But the machine turned its eye toward him. Stay and you die. The lights flickered again. The shadow pressed closer, like a giant hand reaching for the station. Panels on the walls cracked. The floor trembled. Dr. Nero clenched his jaw. There was no choice. They had to follow the machine's instructions. He ordered the team to move toward the emergency shuttle bay. The machine followed them, floating silently like a protective ghost. Alarms wailed across the station as the team ran through the narrow halls. The shadow creature hit the outer hull. Metal screamed. The station shook so violently that some scientists fell to the floor. Dr. Nero grabbed one of them and pushed him forward. They reached the shuttle bay just as the outer wall began to tear apart. The black shape's tendrils slipped through the cracks, searching like the fingers of a blind beast hunting for heat. The machine shot forward, placing itself between the shadow and the scientists. Its blue eye glowed bright white, and a wave of unknown energy burst from it, slowing the creature for a moment. Go, the machine commanded. Dr. Nero slammed his hand on the shuttle door panel, and it opened with a hiss. The team rushed inside. As soon as the shuttle detached from the station, they looked back through the small window. The shadow creature wrapped itself around the station like a serpent around prey. For a moment, the lights inside the station flashed desperately, as if the station itself was begging for help. Then the creature crushed it. The entire structure collapsed in silence, broken into nothing more than drifting metal dust. Fear spread like cold poison through the shuttle cabin. One scientist whispered, "If that thing destroys stations like this, what do humans face?" Dr. Nero had no answer. The shuttle's engines roared as they moved toward the abandoned planet shown in the machine's map. The machine had attached itself to the shuttle's hull, guiding the navigation system, sending coordinates, correcting flight paths. Hours passed in heavy silence as the shuttle cut through empty space. But every time Dr. Nero looked out the window, he felt as if the darkness behind them was moving, as if the creature was still following, still hunting. Finally, the dead planet appeared, gray, cracked, and silent, floating like a ghost in the cold vacuum. As the shuttle lowered into the atmosphere, dust storms danced across the surface like angry spirits. They landed near the same site where the second machine was discovered. The wind screamed across the ruins. The scientists stepped out slowly, looking around in confusion. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. But the ground felt wrong, soft, trembling under their feet. The machine floated out of the shuttle and stopped in the center of the ruins. Its eye glowed again, scanning the ground. Then it said something that made every scientist's stomach drop. "They are inside." Before anyone could ask what it meant, the ground split open with a violent crack. The scientists stumbled back as a massive hidden chamber revealed itself beneath them. Thousands of strange metallic shapes hung from the ceiling inside the cavern. Human machines, silent and cold, waiting like an army frozen in time. Dr. Nero took a shaky breath. What is this place?" The machine answered without turning. "Human fallback site. Last defense." Then the blue eye dimmed and spoke with a tone that felt almost sorrowful. "And now you have awakened them." The cavern began to shake as the silent machines came to life, their eyes glowing one by one, awakening to the same threat that had destroyed the station. And deep beneath the planet, something else opened its eyes too. The cavern trembled like a living beast awakening from a long sleep, and the glow from the countless human machines reflected off the metal walls like 1,000 cold, watchful eyes. Dr. Nero and his team stared in silent terror as the newly awakened machines lifted themselves from the ceiling, each one humming with power that felt ancient yet impossibly advanced. The first machine, the one they had brought from the station, drifted forward and faced the glowing army. Its single blue eye brightened until the entire cavern was washed in pale light. A deep tone erupted from it, a sound that was not mechanical but almost like a call. Instantly, the awakened machines responded with their own tones, forming a strange harmonic signal that echoed through the cavern like a forgotten song of war. The vibration shook the dust from the ceiling and made the ground quiver beneath the scientist's boots. Dr. Nero felt his heart pounding, a mix of fear and awe, as he realized the machines were communicating, sharing information, syncing together, preparing for something huge. The first machine finally turned to the scientists and spoke in its calm, cold voice. "Human record access granted. Viewing sequence." The cavern lights flickered, then a massive hologram appeared above them, showing a scene from a different time, long before humans vanished from the galaxy. Dr. Nero's breath caught in his throat as he saw human soldiers standing on a similar barren world, preparing their machines for battle. Their armor was dark, their faces grim, their eyes filled with determination. And then the shadows came, the same kind of creatures that had destroyed the station. They poured across the hologram battlefield like a growing storm, twisting and stretching as they moved. The humans fought with weapons the scientists had never seen, pure energy shaped like blades and shields, bending physics. But even with such power, the shadows were too many. The hologram shifted to show humans retreating, sealing machines inside underground bunkers across many planets, including this one. The last human commander appeared close in the projection, speaking directly to them. "If you find this, know that we could not destroy them. We could only delay them. Our machines hold the final code, protected at all cost." The hologram faded, leaving the cavern dark again. The scientists stood frozen, their minds overwhelmed by what they had witnessed. The shadows had overwhelmed humans, one of the most advanced species in the galaxy. The machine's eye dimmed to a soft glow as it explained. Humans created the fallback sites after realizing the enemy could not be killed. They designed machines to guard knowledge, prepare defenses, and activate only if the enemy returned. Dr. Nero swallowed hard. "Then that means the enemy, the shadow creature we saw, it is one of them?" The machine responded. "Yes. A scout. More will follow." Fear hit the team like a wave. If that single scout could destroy an entire station easily, what would happen when more arrived? Before they could speak, another sound rose from the cavern floor. A deep, mechanical heartbeat. The awakened machines floated upward, forming a circle around the scientists. Light pulsed through their bodies like flowing blood. The first machine's voice echoed across the chamber. "Initiating human fallback protocol. Phase 1. Construction." The cavern floor opened, revealing massive metal arms, gears, and energy coils rising from below. The machines began building something huge, something complex, something terrifying. Dr. Nero stared in disbelief as the structure took shape, an enormous tower-like device that pulsed with red and blue energy. One of the scientists whispered, "What are they making?" The machine answered without emotion, "A signal amplifier. It will call the remaining human machines across the galaxy." Dr. Nero felt the blood drain from his face. "Won't that also attract the shadow creatures?" The machine paused for a moment, then replied, "Yes." Panic spread through the team. "Then why activate it?" Another scientist shouted. The machine turned its eye toward them, glowing brighter. "Because without the human network, you cannot survive what comes next." The tower in the center of the cavern completed its formation. Energy gathered at the top, swirling like a storm ready to explode. The machine drifted closer to the tower and placed itself into a port at the center, as if merging with it. The entire cavern shook violently, dust raining from above as ancient systems roared to life. "Transmission beginning," the machine announced. A beam of pure blue light shot into the sky, piercing the thick clouds above the planet and reaching into space. Dr. Nero and the scientists shielded their eyes as the ground beneath them trembled. The light carried across the galaxy a message, a beacon, a call. But deep within the darkness of space, far away yet fast approaching, dozens of red pulses began to respond to the light, one by one. The shadows had heard it. They were coming. The machine's voice echoed one last time through the cavern. "The war humans feared returns now." And as the echo faded, the scientists knew there was no going back. The beam of blue light continued to burn through the sky like a spear, reaching far beyond the planet's atmosphere and into the empty cold of space. Dr. Nero and his team watched helplessly as the massive tower pulsed again and again, sending out waves that felt like thunder vibrating through their bones. The awakened human machines circled the tower like silent guardians, their glowing eyes shifting from blue to white as they synced with the transmission. The air around the scientists hummed with a strange energy that made their skin crawl. Something powerful was happening, something the machines had waited centuries to perform. Suddenly, the first machine disconnected itself from the tower and drifted in front of the scientists. Its eye glowed a deep red now, a color none of them had seen before. "Phase 2, construction and defense," it said, its voice even colder than before. As soon as the words left the machine, the entire cavern came alive. Walls folded open, metal columns rose from hidden chambers, and massive robotic arms extended outward, carrying heavy parts that moved with terrifying speed. Human machines formed groups and began assembling new structures across the cavern: towers, shields, strange weapon systems that glowed with energy the scientists had never seen in their lives. Dr. Nero felt a wave of fear mixed with awe. It was like watching an ancient army preparing for a war that had been paused for thousands of years. One scientist shouted over the noise, "What are they building?" The machine answered without looking at him, "A perimeter defense system. The shadow fleet approaches. Time remaining unknown." The words hit the scientists like a hammer. Across the galaxy, the signal had awakened more shadow creatures. They were coming, and the machines were preparing for a fight impossible to imagine. As the activity grew louder, the ground outside the cavern began to shake. The dust storms above shifted unnaturally, swirling as if something massive had entered the atmosphere. Dr. Nero rushed toward the cavern opening and looked up at the sky. What he saw made his heartbeat stop. Red pulses flashed across the clouds, dozens of them, like burning eyes falling from the heavens. The shadows had arrived. One by one, enormous black shapes broke through the clouds, their forms twisting and stretching in impossible ways. They made no sound, but the air screamed around them as they tore through it. The ground cracked, and the planet's crust shook violently, sending rocks tumbling into the cavern. The machine floated beside Dr. Nero and spoke. "Shadow Scouts. First wave." Dr. Nero felt his legs weaken. If these were only scouts, what would the real army look like? The awakened human machines rushed out of the cavern like a silver swarm, forming defensive lines across the planet's cracked surface. They aimed strange glowing weapons at the sky, their lights charging brighter and brighter. The first shadow creature dove toward them, its enormous body stretching like a river of darkness. Before it could land, a beam of pure white energy fired from one of the human machines, striking the shadow and sending ripples through its form. But the shadow did not die. It reformed instantly, twisting into a new shape even more terrifying. Dr. Nero realized with horror that the shadows were learning. Each attack made them stronger, more solid, more aware. A second creature dropped toward the cavern, its tendrils reaching for the tower. The first machine shot forward, placing itself directly in the shadow's path. The creature slammed into it with a violent shockwave that sent rocks flying and knocked the scientists to the ground. The machine's eye flickered, but it held its position. Defense compromised, it announced, but functional. Dr. Nero crawled toward the edge of the cavern, watching the battle unfold. Beams of energy cut through the air. Shadows twisted and reformed. Human machines exploded into fragments when struck, only to reassemble seconds later. It was chaos, beautiful, terrifying chaos. One scientist cried out, "We must escape. We cannot stay here." But the machine turned sharply toward him. Escape is impossible. The shadows are tracking all life signatures. Your survival depends on the human network. Suddenly, the tower pulsed with a red flash. The machine's eye widened. Human signal received. Reinforcement incoming. Dr. Nero stared at the sky, searching for something, anything. Then he saw it, a faint white spark far beyond the clouds, growing brighter by the second. The shadows noticed it too. They shifted direction, pulling themselves upward like liquid darkness, reaching for light. The white spark broke through the clouds, expanding into a massive shape. A ship. A human ship. Not like the one seen in old records. This was something far more advanced, smooth silver, glowing with symbols the scientists did not understand. It moved with speed that ignored gravity. The machine's voice echoed across the battlefield. Human sentinel returning. The ship fired a beam of blinding light at the shadows, slicing through them like a knife through smoke. For the first time, the creatures recoiled, pulling back in fear. Dr. Nero felt hope for the first time since the nightmare began. But the machine ended that hope with one final sentence. "This is not victory. This is only the beginning." The human sentinel ship hovered above the battlefield like a shining guardian, its silver surface glowing with soft white lines that moved like living light. Dr. Nero watched with wide eyes as the ship released another beam, cutting through the shadow creatures and forcing them back into the clouds. But even as the shadows retreated, the air grew colder, as if something far worse was waiting behind them. The human machines on the ground paused their construction and turned their glowing eyes toward the sky. They were listening, waiting. Dr. Nero could feel the tension in the air, a silent warning that the next moment would change everything. Then the ship spoke. Its voice was deep, old, and filled with something that felt almost human. Human network restoration, 30%. Defensive protocol, active. The machines responded instantly, forming new ranks and creating a protective circle around the tower. Energy shields appeared across the battlefield, shimmering like transparent walls of light. The scientists stood frozen. They had never seen such technology. It was like watching an ancient legend slowly come to life. A thick cloud rolled across the sky, darker and heavier than before, and the red pulses inside it grew brighter. Something massive was pushing through. The human sentinel ship shifted position, its smooth surface cracking open to reveal giant glowing wings made of light. The whole planet seemed to shake under the force of its transformation. Dr. Nero grabbed a nearby rock to steady himself as he stared upward. The shadow inside the cloud finally broke free. It was enormous, far bigger than the scouts they had seen before. This one had shape. It had intention. Its body spread across the sky like a massive storm of darkness, with a single burning red eye staring directly at the tower. "Shadow General," the sentinel said. "Engagement required." The Shadow General let out a sound that was not a sound at all. It was a feeling, a wave of dread that slammed into the planet and made the scientists fall to their knees. Dr. Nero clutched his head as his vision shook. The human machines did not move. Their bright eyes locked onto the creature, weapons charging again. The sentinel ship fired first. A beam brighter than anything before shot into the sky, hitting the Shadow General with full force. But unlike the scouts, this creature absorbed the blast. The darkness around its body pulsed, then expanded like a living shield. The beam broke apart inside the creature's mass and vanished. Dr. Nero felt his blood run cold. The ship fired again, faster this time, beams slicing into the shadow, but again, the creature absorbed all of it, as if feeding off human energy. The machines on the ground adjusted their formation. New threat level detected. One of them said, its voice sharp, "Shadow evolution accelerating." The Shadow General reached down with a gigantic tendril of darkness, slamming it into the ground. The planet cracked open like thin ice, tossing rocks and dust high into the air. Two human machines were crushed instantly, their bodies splitting apart into glowing fragments. But instead of dying, the fragments floated back together, rebuilding themselves almost instantly. Dr. Nero stared as they reformed and jumped back into position. "They cannot be destroyed permanently," he whispered to himself. "But can they win?" The Sentinel flew forward, pushing its wings wide and releasing a wave of pure white energy that hit the Shadow General like a tidal force. The creature recoiled this time, shrinking its giant body for a moment. The humans felt a spark of hope, but the Shadow responded with something new, something terrible. It opened its single immense red eye fully, and a beam of darkness shot out. Not light darkness. It struck the Sentinel ship, wrapping around it like chains. The glowing lights on the ship flickered. Dr. Nero felt the air grow heavy as the Sentinel struggled. "Containment detected," it said, its voice strained. "Energy consumption increasing. Structural failure in." The voice cut off. The shadow beam tightened, pulling the Sentinel toward the clouds. The ground shook again. The human machines launched themselves upward, dozens of them flying at high speed to reach their Sentinel. They fired beams, blades of light, and bursts of pure energy, trying to break the Shadow's grip. But each attack made the Shadow General stronger. It absorbed everything. Dr. Nero realized the horrible truth. "It grows by feeding on human energy," he whispered. "Every attack makes it more powerful." The Sentinel seemed to understand this too, because its glowing wings suddenly folded inward, collapsing into a sphere of bright white light. A deep hum filled the air. The machines on the ground stopped. The scientists froze. The shadows paused. The Sentinel spoke one final time. "Initiating override. Human core protocol." Every human machine turned sharply, their eyes turning white. The tower glowed from bottom to top, and the ground beneath it cracked open, revealing giant rings that began rotating. The Sentinel released a pulse so powerful that Dr. Nero was thrown backward. The pulse hit the Shadow General, pushing it back for the first time. The creature screeched in pain, its massive form twisting violently. The shadows surrounding it disintegrated. Dr. Nero stared at the sky in shock. "What did the Sentinel do?" he whispered. The machines answered in a single cold voice. "It awakened the human core." And before Dr. Nero could ask what that meant, the entire planet lit up. The entire planet flashed with a blinding white light, spreading out from the tower like a wave of silent fire. Dr. Nero covered his face with his arms, trying to protect his eyes from the impossible brightness. But the light still seeped through his skin, warm and unnaturally soft. When the glow finally faded, he slowly opened his eyes and froze in shock. The ground around the tower was no longer cracked and broken. Instead, it was glowing with smooth white lines that ran across the surface like veins of living light. The machines stood perfectly still, their eyes shining pure white, all facing the tower as if waiting for a command. The sky, which moments ago had been filled with darkness, and the massive shape of the Shadow General, now looked empty and silent. But the silence was not peaceful. It felt like the world was holding its breath. Dr. Nero stepped forward carefully. What is the human core?" he whispered, though he knew none of the scientists around him could answer. Suddenly the tower trembled, and the rings beneath it spun faster, creating a deep hum that vibrated through the air. A beam of light shot upward from the tower again, but this time it changed shape. It twisted, split, and formed a giant pattern in the sky, like an enormous symbol the aliens had never seen before. The human machines looked up at it with something that almost felt like awe. Then a voice spoke, not from the machines, not from the Sentinel ship, but from everywhere at once. It was calm, powerful, and strangely human. Human core awakening complete. Initializing contact. Dr. Nero stumbled back, heart pounding. The air in front of the tower rippled like water, and a figure began to form, a tall humanoid shape made of pure white light. It had no face, no clear features, but its outline was unmistakably human. The scientist stared in terror and fascination. "What are you?" Dr. Nero asked, barely able to breathe. The glowing figure turned its head toward him. "I am the human core," it said. "The final safeguard. The last memory of humanity." Dr. Nero felt chills run through him. "You were asleep?" "Humanity locked me away before their fall," the core replied, "waiting for the shadow threat to return, waiting for a new mind to awaken the machines." The figure raised its hand, and the sky shifted again. Clouds twisted aside, revealing the shadow army gathering above the atmosphere. Dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of dark forms waiting on the edge of space. The shadow general hovered in front of them, its wounded form slowly knitting itself back together from the damage caused by the Sentinel's pulse. The core continued. "Your arrival accelerated their awakening. The shadows sensed human energy again. They respond to the memory of what they once feared." Dr. Nero swallowed hard. And what did they fear? The core's voice echoed across the entire valley. "Us." The machines moved suddenly, lifting into the air in perfect formation, like a rising army of silver. Their white eyes glowed brighter, syncing with the core's light. The Sentinel ship, still damaged but functional, floated beside them. "Shadow invasion probability, 99%, the core said. "They will strike with full force, and this planet will not survive without defense." Dr. Nero felt a wave of fear rise in his chest. "Then we need to leave." "No," the core interrupted. "You must stay. I require organic minds to stabilize." Dr. Nero blinked. "What does that mean?" "The machines follow logic. You follow instinct. Both are needed. Humanity designed me to bond with living thought." Before Dr. Nero could respond, the Shadow General roared, a silent roar that shook the sky itself. It began descending again, leading the Shadow Army toward the planet. The core lifted its arm, and a massive dome of white light formed over the tower, reaching across miles of land. The shadows hit the dome, causing ripples like waves crashing against glass. Several smaller shadow creatures slipped through cracks in the dome where the light flickered. The machines responded instantly. They shot forward, weapons blazing, engaging the creatures before they reached the scientists. But this time, the shadows fought smarter. They dodged attacks, split into multiple forms, and circled the machines with frightening speed. Dr. Nero watched in horror as one shadow creature rushed straight toward him and the other scientists. A human machine intercepted it at the last second, slamming into the creature with a blast of white energy. But instead of retreating, the shadow attached itself to the machine like black liquid. The machine's white eye flickered red. "Infection detected," it said. Locking down, the machine exploded, sending fragments flying. The core spoke again. "They can infect machines now. They evolve faster than expected." The dome flickered again, darker this time. The Shadow General pressed harder against it, its giant form twisting and tightening like a storm ready to break apart the sky. The Sentinel ship flew upward, firing its last reserves of energy to hold the dome in place. Dr. Nero looked around. Machines fighting, shadows breaking through, the dome weakening, the core glowing brighter and brighter. And then the core spoke one sentence that froze Dr. Nero's blood. "To survive, someone must merge with the human core." Dr. Nero stared at the glowing figure as its white form slowly extended a hand toward him. "And it must be you." The core's light intensified until the entire valley glowed like a second sun, forcing Dr. Nero to shield his eyes with trembling hands, yet he could still feel its warmth and strange energy coursing through him, pulling at his mind and body as if it wanted him to move closer. The shadow army above had grown larger, hundreds of dark, twisting forms now filling the sky, each one responding to the core signal, circling like predators that had smelled their prey, their enormous red eyes scanning for weaknesses, while the ground shook under the combined weight of energy pulses from the machines and the core itself. And the Sentinel ship, though battered, hovered above the tower, firing rapid beams of white light at the shadow creatures that attempted to break through the protective dome. Yet for every shadow destroyed, two more seemed to take its place, moving faster, learning faster, forcing the machines to adjust their formation constantly, while Dr. Nero noticed that the core was not only emitting light but also pulling energy from the planet itself, drawing minerals and power from beneath the crust, shaping it into structures that rose from the ground and connected with the machines, creating walls, weapons, and strange energy nodes that hummed with power. And as the shadows pressed against these barriers, they reacted violently, exploding into fragments, only to reassemble a moment later, demonstrating an intelligence that seemed almost human, or perhaps something darker. The core spoke again, its voice calm yet commanding, echoing inside the minds of the humans and machines alike. All systems linked. Human network online. Defense readiness, 98%. Remaining threat high. Dr. Nero's heart raced. He could feel the core's intent, a force stronger than anything he had ever known, directing the machines like a symphony of war. The Shadow Army recoiled briefly as the core projected beams into the sky, creating holographic maps of the battlefield, highlighting weak points in the enemy formation, and simultaneously transmitting instructions to every machine, coordinating attacks with precision beyond human comprehension. And yet the shadows adapted quickly, shifting formations, splitting into smaller units, and attacking the core directly with focused strikes, testing its strength, probing for flaws. One massive tendril broke through a newly formed energy wall, striking the ground near the scientists and sending a shockwave that knocked them off their feet. The core's light flared violently in response, extending tendrils of energy outward to repel the shadow, but it could not destroy them all at once, and Dr. Nero realized that if the core fell, the entire planet would be overrun within minutes. Desperation settled over him like ice, and he saw the core turn its attention toward him, its glowing white hand reaching out through the pulsing light. "Merge," it said. "Your mind will stabilize the network. You will guide the machines. Without you, humanity's final defense fails." Dr. Nero shook his head, fear gripping every nerve, but as he looked around at the sky filled with shadows, at the machines fighting desperately to hold them back, and at the energy nodes rising from the planet like living towers, he understood the truth. There was no choice. The core's light enveloped him, pulling him forward, merging with his body and mind, filling him with knowledge he could barely comprehend, showing him star maps, histories of humans long gone, technologies beyond imagination, the secrets of energy, gravity, and space itself, and simultaneously he could feel every machine, every node, every pulse of light on the planet linking to him, as if he had become the central mind of an army built by humans to fight an enemy that had haunted them for centuries. The shadows sensed this change immediately, screaming silently as their attacks grew more frantic, their forms twisting unnaturally, and yet every strike against the machines, every attempt to breach the dome, was now anticipated, countered, and defeated as Dr. Nero's consciousness directed the core and the network with instinctive precision, weapons firing in perfect harmony, shields adjusting, energy waves dispersing attacks before they could land, and slowly, with relentless force, the shadows began to falter, breaking apart under the synchronized assault of the human machines, the core, and now Dr. Nero himself. But even as the first signs of victory appeared, the core's voice whispered in his mind, "This is only the beginning. The main army approaches. Prepare for the final confrontation." Dr. Nero felt exhaustion threaten to overtake him, yet he stood taller within the core's light, feeling a new strength, new understanding, and as the shadows regrouped in the upper atmosphere, he realized that he was no longer just a human, no longer just an observer. He had become the link, the commander, the guardian of humanity's final legacy, and as the first wave of shadows began to retreat, reforming far above the planet to strike again, he knew with certainty that this battle, and every one to come, would be fought through him, through the core, and through the machines that humanity had left behind to guard the galaxy against the darkness. The first wave of shadows had been pushed back, but the sky was far from safe. Dr. Nero, fully merged with the human core, could feel the tension in every machine, every energy node, and even in the planet itself, as if the ground was alive and aware of the danger above. And the human sentinel ship hovered near the tower, its energy wings pulsing in perfect rhythm with the core's power, while the shadows regrouped beyond the clouds, forming patterns that suggested a strategy, intelligence, and patience, all terrifyingly alien. And Dr. Nero understood instantly that the main army was approaching, far larger, stronger, and more cunning than anything the humans had ever faced, and his heart pounded in rhythm with the core's pulse as it transmitted instructions to every machine across the planet. The energy towers glowing brighter, shields reinforcing, weapons charging, while he could see the history of humans flashing through his mind. The wars they fought, the enemies they could not destroy, the reason why they had disappeared, leaving behind machines as guardians of their legacy. And suddenly the core projected a holographic message above the tower, showing humans in battle against the shadows centuries ago, fighting not to conquer, but to survive. And in that moment, Dr. Nero realized why the humans had built these machines and networks. They had known the shadows would return. They had prepared for this exact moment, and they had left everything for someone like him to finish what they started. But the message also revealed a shocking truth. The humans themselves were not dead. They had sealed themselves away, hidden in a distant system, waiting for the network to awaken so they could emerge again. And Dr. Nero felt a surge of hope mixed with fear as he processed this revelation, knowing that if the shadows destroyed the planet, the humans' entire plan would fail. Yet the core whispered in his mind, "The human network must survive. Humanity depends on you." And he nodded, feeling the weight of centuries of responsibility pressing on him. Even as the shadows began their descent, thousands of black forms pouring from the upper atmosphere, twisting and stretching like smoke, each one larger and more terrifying than the last. And the Shadow General, bigger than ever, led the attack with intelligence, striking at the core and the energy towers with tendrils that could crush mountains and generate energy pulses that threatened to collapse the planet. Yet Dr. Nero directed the machines with calm precision, creating barriers, redirecting energy, firing beams that cut through dozens of shadows at once. And for the first time, the machines and humans worked in perfect harmony, a network of power, instinct, and thought that even the shadows could not fully comprehend. And as he guided the Sentinel ship to intercept a massive cluster of attacking shadows, he saw the core split part of its energy to awaken more dormant machines across the planet. Thousands of smaller human machines leaping from hidden bunkers and energy nodes to join the battle, their eyes glowing white, their weapons firing in perfect timing. And the shadows roared silently as they realized the battlefield had changed, that the humans had returned through the core, and that they were not alone. And the Shadow General, enraged, focused its full attention on the tower, slamming into it with a mass of dark energy that shook the planet to its core. But Dr. Nero anticipated the strike, directing energy from the core through the ground, through the tower, and into the attacking shadow, destabilizing its form and sending fragments of it flying into the sky, the other shadows recoiling in confusion and fear. Yet he knew this was temporary, and the core whispered, "Prepare for the final wave." And Dr. Nero braced himself, knowing that every second counted, that every decision could mean victory or annihilation, while the machines adjusted, creating moving walls, energy traps, and strategic formations that funneled the shadows into zones where the core could strike most effectively. And slowly, with meticulous precision, the shadows began to weaken, their numbers thinning as their attacks failed, their forms torn apart by the combined efforts of Dr. Nero, the core, the machines, and the Sentinel ship. And as the last fragments of the first major wave fell, Dr. Nero allowed himself a moment of triumph, only to see the clouds above ripple violently, indicating that the main army's core had arrived, larger, more terrifying, and faster than anything they had fought yet. And the core spoke once more calmly, with authority that filled his mind. The humans you saw were only the first line. The true force approaches. The war is not over. Humanity is not safe. And now you are the command. Dr. Nero steadied himself, his mind and body linked to the core, his consciousness extending into every machine on the planet, feeling the weight and power of thousands of human machines ready to fight. And as the sky darkened with the approaching main force, he realized the final battle had begun, and the survival of humanity, the legacy of the human race, and the future of the galaxy depended entirely on him, the human core, and the army they commanded. The main shadow army descended like a living storm, black forms stretching across the sky, twisting and flowing as if space itself had turned against the planet, their red eyes glowing with malice and intelligence. And Dr. Nero, fully merged with the human core, felt the full weight of responsibility pressed down on him as he extended his mind to every machine on the planet, every energy node, every human sentinel, coordinating their movements, attacks, and defenses with precision beyond human understanding. While the ground shook violently under the approaching army, massive craters forming where the shadow's tendrils struck, yet the core's light radiated outward, forming protective domes, walls, and weapons that repelled the first assaults, energy beams slicing through the dark forms, fragments scattering into the sky, but instantly reforming, demonstrating the shadow's terrifying ability to evolve in real time. And Dr. Nero knew that brute force alone would not win this battle. Strategy, instinct, and the human legacy within him were their only chance, and he directed the machines to move in coordinated waves, pushing the shadows into zones where the core's energy could strike most effectively, while simultaneously guiding the Sentinel ship in daring attacks, ramming clusters of shadows with beams of concentrated white light that split them apart. Yet the Shadow General, larger and more cunning than ever, focused its immense power on the tower and core, sending massive pulses of darkness that tore through shields, forcing the machines to constantly adapt, the battlefield a swirling chaos of light, shadow, and energy. And despite the destruction and chaos, Dr. Nero felt a strange calm, his mind synchronized with the core, seeing centuries of human strategy, technologies, and tactics unfold in an instant, knowing exactly when and where to strike. And as the first waves of the Shadow Army fell back, broken and unstable, the core projected a massive white beam into the upper atmosphere, calling dormant human machines across nearby systems, their ships and constructs appearing instantly, joining the fight with blinding precision, while the shadows, realizing their enemies had multiplied, attacked more aggressively, trying to breach the planetary defenses and the core's energy field. And Dr. Nero responded by splitting his consciousness, directing hundreds of machines at multiple points simultaneously, anticipating every attack before it happened, guiding the energy currents through the planet itself to create traps, barriers, and weapons that shredded shadows as they approached. Yet for every shadow destroyed, another adapted, forcing constant vigilance, and the Shadow General now moved with terrifying speed, striking at the tower directly with concentrated masses of darkness, collapsing energy nodes and destroying smaller machines instantly, while Dr. Nero, feeling the core's energy flow through him, unleashed a counterwave of white light combining the tower, the core, and his own will into a single force, striking the general with enough energy to tear through its form. Yet it did not die, only recoiling and reforming with greater intensity. And the battle raged, faster, brighter, deadlier, the sky a storm of black and white, machines and shadows colliding in a dance of destruction and survival, until the core whispered in his mind, "Final phase. Merge fully. Become the last guardian." Dr. Nero hesitated, fear and doubt battling against the certainty of what must be done. But as he looked at the horizon, the shadows regrouping for a final assault, the destruction all around him, and the machines waiting, he realized there was no choice, and with a deep breath, he allowed his mind, body, and soul to merge completely with the core, feeling his human self dissolve into light and energy, every thought, every instinct, every emotion becoming one with the human legacy encoded in the machines, the tower, and the planet itself. And in that moment, he became more than human, more than machine, a singular consciousness of pure strategy, power, and determination, and the Shadow General, sensing this overwhelming force, hesitated, the red eye flickering as it realized the battle had shifted, and then Dr. Nero unleashed the full power of the human core, directing beams, shields, and energy currents with absolute perfection, striking every shadow simultaneously, splitting them apart faster than they could reform, while the Sentinel ship and all machines moved with lethal precision, surrounding the Shadow General, cutting off escape, and finally, the core compressed its energy into a single, blinding strike directly at the General, tearing it into fragments of dark smoke, scattering the remaining shadows into nothingness, the sky clearing for the first time in centuries, leaving only the glowing light of the tower and the machines that had survived. And as the echoes of battle faded, Dr. Nero's consciousness, fully merged with the core, floated above the planet, feeling the energy of the land, the machines, and the dormant human network stabilizing, and he realized with awe that humanity's final legacy had survived, the shadows defeated, and the galaxy now protected by a mind that combined human instinct, ancient technology, and his own courage, and the core whispered gently, "The war is over for now, but vigilance must continue." Dr. Nero, now part of the human core, looked down at the planet below, glowing with life and light, and knew that though he was no longer human in form, he was the guardian of humanity's memory, strength, and hope, ready to defend the galaxy from any darkness that dared rise again, and for the first time in centuries, the universe seemed to breathe, silent and safe, under the watch of the human core.